There is somebody with a okay, with microphone on. Let's check it out. Yeah. We will wait for a couple more minutes so everyone will be here. And during the discussion, you can send your question in the chat, but I honestly probably will be not able to answer all the questions and ask all the questions because I'm not the answer today. So yeah, let us a couple more minutes and we will start.
Hi all, I wanted also to introduce myself. So my name is Ilya, and I'm a colleague of Yulia. We work together on Nerds Bay as a community and as a project, and really happy to see some people joining us today. And I'll be helping Yulia and Kirill maybe to answer some questions and to ask some questions probably, and to manage some of the things. I hope we will have a great session today, and yeah, so let's wait until everybody joins, and then let's go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so I think that we are good to start. And let me quickly introduce myself and the company where I'm working. My name is Julia. I'm an immigrant here in Finland, and I'm working in Nerds Bay since 2019. And Nerds Bay is an implemented record company which helps people to live in Finland and work remotely. So we've been helping people to find a job and to set a job here in Finland since 2019. But nowadays we believe with the current job market situation that the best way to have a job in Finland is to work remotely. So today with us, I have Kirill Tervo, is an attorney at law specializing in Finnish corporate law, M&A, and transaction involving foreign parties in Finland. He works closely with international clients and cross-border legal frameworks, bringing a practical legal perspective to complex regulatory questions. Kirill, thank you very much for joining us for this session. So many people interested to know more about these new rules. I will share slides that we prepared for this session, but we will not rely only on the slides, but also going through the questions that we have from the audience. Yeah, I will skip those slides for now. And yeah, Kirill, could you please make a short introduction of your own now?
Thank you, Julia, and hello to everybody. I am pleased to see these huge numbers of you. This has been indeed a surprise. I did not expect to make a presentation in such a huge event, but the more the merrier, as they say. I am an immigrant myself. although I have to say that I have lived in Finland 5/6 of my life. I moved here from Soviet Union back in 1990 as a small child. So essentially all my degrees have been attained here. I've been studying law in University of Helsinki. I've been citizen of Finland for past, I don't know, 30 years or so. And I still remember the days of the law on immigrants, which is considerably older than what we have now. So I remember times when the legislation was harsher still. Also, I personally came here, obviously, as a family member of a Finnish repatriant, so-called Ingrian Finns. So that was a small leniency. But yeah, I normally, a bit of warning for you, I don't normally work with immigration issues. I work with corporate law, but immigration, let's say, due to my clientele, which is very international, it has risen in importance to unprecedented levels, especially in the past 2 years now that we have had right-wing populist government. There's a lot of questions popping up, but we'll get to those.
But skip them now. We have questions that we collected from the audience in advance. We will go through them, and if we have time, we will choose questions from the audience.
Sure, indeed. As I was saying, due to my clientele, which is mostly international companies establishing themselves in Finland or establishing subsidiaries in Finland or purchasing something in Finland, they have encountered a lot of issues with basically immigration questions of their senior management, and that's how I came to work also in that field. And by now I have approximately 15 cases pending or resolved or coming up in the Administrative Court of Helsinki mostly, and in the Administrative Court of Vaasa actually as well, on immigration permits. And therefore I have had to follow up closely on the latest amendments in the on the Alien Act, as we call it, ulkomaalaislaki in Finnish. What comes to Act itself, to the law, on whose changes we are going to discuss today, it is rather old by Finnish standards. Well, the oldest laws in Finland are actually in force from 18th century, so it's not horribly old in that sense, but it is, let's say, antiquated considering that the environment for which it was created, it was originally legislated into force in 2004, has changed dramatically. The amount of the number of immigrants living in Finland has increased manifold since. Back in 1990, when I came to Finland, I guess Finland had less than 1% of population not born in Finland. By now, I believe, it has exceeded 10%. So the situation has changed drastically, especially like around Helsinki region. So obviously there has been a lot of pressure on the law to amend it and so on. It has been amended on several occasions before. Usually it has been streamlined, but the problem is whenever you have like one act and you then amend one piece there, one piece there, and one piece there, it becomes, let's say, a bit fuzzy and a bit unclear, and that was a problem with the act already before all the latest amendments by the current governing coalition. And as you are all, I guess, well aware, the current coalition consists of right-wing party essentially representing international capital and also of the party of nationalists who don't have any particular political program except that they are strongly opposed to immigration to Finland as such. Therefore, obviously, they promised in their pre-election program that they will stifle the immigration to Finland. And they have made quite an effort in that regard. Luckily enough, their, let's say, goals are somewhat contradicting to the general needs of both Finnish business and the goals of the second coalition party, the Kokoomus. So therefore, not everything they wanted has been actually successful. And for the second part, I mean, a lot of changes which they have proposed actually are already there. They were already actually in the legislation. The party of True Finns is actually famous for demanding in media amendments to the legislation which already correspond to pre-existing legislation. It's just, let's say, to an extent, describes the situation of their basic knowledge of what they're speaking about. But then again, the latest changes, which we are going to discuss today to the permanent residences, are indeed the most extensive amendments to the Act on aliens in the past few years. There has not been such a deep amendment of the Act in a while, but it's and truth to be spoken, I have been discussing the same acts with organization of Finnish attorneys, of all the attorneys who actually are working with this, on both of those attorneys who work on this on behalf of refugee asylum seekers, and then who do the business immigration, those who do the work-based immigration, and so on. And everybody do agree that the law does need indeed deep reform. But what we have seen right now is not exactly a deep reform that was necessary and still is, because now we have a ramshackle amount of amendments. We have to remember too that these amendments on the permanent residence permits are not the only reforms which are actually imposed by the current coalition. There is actually 15 amendments to the Act in the past year alone, and approximately 60 amendments on the Act before that. So it has been changing a lot. But yeah, now with the latest amendments coming into force in the beginning of this month, the group worst hit, in my opinion, frankly, is the family members of the specialists coming to Finland. And the second group, perhaps hit hard, are those employees who actually are earning below 40,000 euros. But for the rest, for the specialists, for highly educated people, actually the situation has not changed as drastically as you could imagine. So that is, let's say, a lengthy introduction into what we are discussing, into what we are actually speaking about when we speak about the latest amendments. Right.
Thank you, Kirill, for the short introduction and explanation how things been, developing since the very early time of Finland. Let's go deeper to this, the last one, changes that we have, which is connected with permanent resident permit. And the very first road, now it's changed from 4 years to 6 years to have a resident permit. And the basic requirements are here on your screens. So you need to live at least 6 years in Finland with a resident permit, and you have at least 2 years of work experience in Finland. Is that the last years, or it's maybe in the middle of your stay in Finland?
It's actually all this is described in so-called proposal. Oh yeah, by the way, one important aspect of this of the legislation process of Finland I did not mention is that actually what are the sources of what you are, if you are pondering about something, then what you should check is not the act itself, but so-called coalition's proposal for the act, which is called Hallituksen esitys in Finnish. If you are versed in that, unfortunately, that document is usually never available in English. It's always obviously in Finnish and Swedish. We revert to that when we come back to the language requirements. But yes, basically there they explain everything about that. And unless I am completely mistaken, the Hallituksen esitys, which is number 62/2025, says that the work experience is accrued over throughout the entire period of residence. So it does not have to be like, in the very end, because now we are speaking about the group which is like The group which has been affected the most, EA, those who are not earning substantial sums of money, who have been living here with on other grounds. So for them, it is enough just to have 2 years of experience in total.
Okay. So the first question about the road number 1. How the unemployment benefit limit maximum 3 months is calculated, paid days or current calendar period, and are waiting periods excluded?
It's calendar days, so not exceeding 3 months. But what is much more important here, and which might not be immediately understood from the act itself, is that if you are speaking about if you are speaking about applying for permanent residence on basis of employment, which is not highly qualified employment, which has also requirement for higher salary. Perhaps I'll take one more step back. Basically, we need to remember here that whenever you are applying for a permanent residence permit, then those grounds for which your original temporary residence permit or continuous residence permit was granted must be in force. So if you are an employee in Finland working in not specialist positions, so earning less than 3,937, I believe, for this year, euros a month, then your employment must be also enforced when you are applying for permanent residence, and what's more, it should be enforced when you actually are obtaining when the resolution on your permanent residence permit is coming into force. So basically, if you are applying on the basis of employment, then it is indeed 3 months in the past 2 years, which you are supposed to be taking the benefits. But even more so, that's actually the months when you are supposed to be out of employment. So that's a bit of a harsh rule, because actually it's not only that whether you are taking the benefits or not. Actually, what is counted also is your downtime. So basically, even if you are not taking the benefits but are unemployed, actually that also might be a hinder for obtaining the permanent residence.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're applying after 6 years?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go for the next road for people who can obtain a resident permit for 4 years period. It's on the ground of high income. Let's focus on this option A for the first. Is that 40,000 requirement based on earned and taxed income, or can it rely on a current employment contract? So meaning that, can it be, for example, from the flat rentals earnings plus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually all taxed or taxable or actually declared income. So basically, it would be either capital income or it could be salary income, whatever income it is that you are actually declaring in your Finnish tax returns. So what you need is basically what the 2 documents they will be looking at is the freshest tax filing of you, or not the tax filing, but tax returns. So basically, the document you get after the final taxation on the financial year, and your income statements. So basically, once again, what you need is the only there is actually a whole formula in that particular chapter 56A, I believe its number in the current law, 56, or was it J? I don't quite recall, but anyway, it's in there. There's a full formula how that is calculated. So basically, they take all your incomes declared in the tax returns, and then they deduct from that the social benefits you have received. So if the net before taxes is 40 or above, you qualify. And that also that should be enforced both on the moment of your application, because basically if you apply before that, then well, you are not entitled, so why bother? And once again, when they make the resolution, so considering the processing times, so let's say if it takes now approximately 1 year or so to resolve, or 9 months. So basically, if you are, for instance, submitting your application in April, when you should already have at your disposal the tax returns of previous year, and then you get your resolution, let's say in May next year, so it takes about a bit longer than 1 year, then essentially you need to have the proven income in 2 consecutive tax years.
So you need to prove your tax income for the previous year and for this year particularly. So for example, if you're applying in July, you need to show your tax resolution for the previous year, and you need to prove that you have.
They speak about the freshest available tax resolution. So it's basically if you get your residence permit in time before the next year's tax resolution, then it's okay. But I guess what everybody should be aware of, if that there is a significant chance that the process will be long, then they need to assume that, let's say, a couple of years will be needed. So basically, it's always the freshest available tax resolution which counts.
Okay, thank you. Question regard. I think that you answered all the questions of this section about this 40,000 euros. So far,
there was, I believe, a question about the pensions. The accrued pensions do count, yes.
In family-based permanent resident, is the salary contract enough, or must past income be proven?
Excuse me, is that? Would you please repeat the question?
Yeah. In family-based, if you apply on a family base for the resident permit, is salary contract enough, or must past income be proven?
Whether you are no, the theoretical incomes are not counted. So if you are applying for the permanent residence in expedited proceedings, which means over 40 kilo euros of income, and your basis of being in Finland is family ties, then the contract alone stating that you will potentially earn 40,000 or more is not enough. Then you will need to prove that, as said, you will need to show actually the actual income. It does not need to be from salary. It can be from anything. Basically, you may have in your original in your country of origin, you might have flats which you are renting out. As long as you are declaring that income in Finland, it counts. You might have shares, you might have option plans, which also might count. I mean, you might have as much of capital income as there might be. I mean, I do have some people I know who earn considerably more in capital income than actually in personal gain. Personal income, which means salary. So everything that counts, but it's not like, if you are applying on the basis of family ties and expedited procedures on based or shorter time period on basis of 40K income, then you need to have already proven in that income in your previous finalized taxation.
Okay, thank you. So we're going for this option B, higher education plus local work experience. The question, that is road waive only in only the resident permit period, or language income integration requirements still required?
So are you speaking about the local higher education or actually education obtained somewhere else? Or
let's go and start with the question, can I, for example, use my master in computer science diploma obtained in Russia here in Finland?
Yes, you can. What you need for the first, what you need is to confirm that at the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
That it corresponds to actually basically European diploma, and that is not horribly difficult procedure, but you just need to do that. That is actually one of the ancient requirements. My parents had to do that. They had Soviet engineering education. They did actually confirm that. Back in those days, it was still a very much paper processing. It was much smaller and so on. But yes.
I've been doing that confirmation by my own, and for now it's super easy process. It's of course taken some time, but it's not requires for you a lot of papers and
Yes.
yeah.
So what is wonderful in Finland in general, that all the processes, all the red tape that exists here is supposed to be as simple as possible. So it is presumed that everybody does this for himself. Actually, that is not something I would be doing for any clients, because I mean, for God's sake, it's such a simple task. You just Google up where you go to submit your diploma, and then you get it confirmed.
So in this case, if I have my diploma confirmed here in Finland, and I've been living here for 4 years,
yes,
and I've been working for 2 years, do I need to have a language test here, or what other requirements might appear?
There is a language requirement. Actually, it is it has to be developing. So I believe it's I'm not quite sure whether that corresponds to B1 or not. Actually, that is something I need to check up. But yeah.
You think that it should be developing means that it's A2?
Yeah, I think so. That is something actually I need to check up, because it's not immediately because on this particular issue the law was slightly ambiguously written. So but the only where you were not required to, I mean, the general leniency. Oh, there comes the answer. Helsinki man says 15 credits, so it's A2. So basically, yes, I guess it's that.
But you can prove just 15 credits from the university. You can take a course from the university and prove that you have this 15 credits.
I guess so.
Okay. Is any work history required, or can resident permit be based solely on studies or integration training?
Yes, it can. Actually, then you will need to have your entire degree done here, or then you need to have exceptionally good skills in language. That is, I believe, the new. Let me then just quickly check which paragraph was that, but it is there. It is yes, so essentially no. So foreign degrees do not qualify for degree-based permanent residence, but they, if they are officially recognized, then I had a note on this particular question actually, but did not expect this question to occur this quickly, so I'm slightly behind in my notes.
Okay, so let's keep that so nobody will be misunderstood in this point. Can a graduate apply while holding a job seeking or language study permit without employment?
Yes.
So they still can apply for a permanent resident permit?
Yes.
Okay, that's good news. Is any work history required, or can resident permit be based only solely on studies or integrational trainings?
Only in case if you have studied your degree in Finland, then it can be. But if you are university degree, and actually in that case, even the lower or the normal University of Applied Sciences degree does not count. So it has to be either a university degree from Finland, or actually lower university degree, but not the basic degree of applied University of Applied Sciences. Or then it could be the the post-graduation degree from University of Applied Studies, basically when you do the master's in the University of Applied Studies. Yes, based on those, you can apply even without working requirements.
Strong language criteria. So if I have, let's say, C1, and imagine that I have C1 in Finnish, and I have 4 years of residence. You say that I need at least 3 years of work experience. Can I take 1 year this unemployment benefits at this time?
Yes, because those are independent. So I believe that actually, the unemployment time counts mostly in those cases where you are applying on your permanent, as stated before. When you're applying for permanent residence, the original grounds on which you have been residing in Finland must be in force. So, or actually, your current existing permanent, your current existing residence permit, the grounds for that must be. I mean, it might be like in case of studies, for instance, yes, you are entitled to stay and see job and so on.
Spouse.
Yes,
might be like that. If you are a spouse, you come here with a specialist, for example, and you have this C1, but 3 years of experience is quite a lot for 4 years residence and C1. So it's very difficult, like I would say.
But then we need to remember that particular case was thought of for especially people who moved from Finland, away from Finland as kids and then are returning. So a bit like that. So it's a bit of special case. I mean, I guess that the idea of True Finns was not about foreigners actually learning Finnish on excellent levels abroad. Also, that is completely possible with that. But it's mostly about repatriants, I guess.
And for example, Swedish people, as they have this Swedish language on a C1, they also can move to Finland with this track. Okay. Row 3, resident permit without a mandatory residence period. If you completed a bachelor, master, licentiate, or PhD degree in Finland, you can apply for permanent resident permit without waiting 4 or 6 years. Language must be considered developing, so it's A2, as we already know. Examples that count include 50 ETC or Finnish or Swedish A2. Yeah. So we do have questions for this one. Can unemployed graduate in language or integration studies apply after 3 years of residence?
Unemployed or now basically these provisions are for people who have made the entire diploma in Finland. So basically you graduate from Finnish university, and which usually would take a bit longer than, let's say, 3-4 years. So it's I would not call that actually experience in that sense. I mean, theoretically you do actually. I know people who actually got the law degree from my faculty in 2.5 years, but those are rare exceptions, of course, and the grades were not horribly good. But I mean, they also need basically native skills in Finnish as well. So theoretically, I mean, that is possible. But yeah, people who have actually studied the entire degree in Finland, yes, they can be unemployed when actually seeking for permanent residence permit.
I have 3 questions, not regarding this permanent resident permit, but for example, can a student spouse apply for a resident permit only after a year of studies or not? Or you are not able to answer this question?
I am actually, the spouse.
A spouse of a student who been studied in Finland for 1 year, can she apply, or he?
You cannot apply for a permanent residence.
No, not a permanent one. This is just about residence permit.
Yeah. We are speaking about the regular residence permits and for those of the students.
Mhm.
Here I have to say that unfortunately I did not investigate that question. I would answer that later on via email, but I've actually not read through what it. I never essentially do the student residence permit, so I have no previous experience on that.
Mhm.
Before, as you know, that was unrestricted. Now, actually, there's introduced a new limitation
Mhm.
for the family members of the students, but I'm not actually at all aware of the amendments in there. I need to check on that.
Okay, so I'm done with my. There is a PEU permit, right? The latest one. So, what is your thoughts about that? Could you give us some ideas what it's made for, so we better understand how it works?
That is basically something they had to introduce into the law because otherwise the restrictions they were proposing to were harsher than general limitations imposed by the directive on residents of European Union. So here we actually have a case where European law overrides, so to say, Finnish law, domestic law. So the EU blue card is a bit of different. I mean, that's for highly salaried specialists who have actually, EU blue card is something which is actually easier obtained in many other countries of Europe. So essentially, if you are residing in Finland, then it's not like really a good option because it does not provide you with any significant benefits in addition of basically a slightly easier move in the EU. But if you are moving somewhere else, then you get the same permit easier in that destination country usually. Whereas in Finland, the requirements for instance, like specialist residence permits are actually more lenient than the blue card. So blue card is really not an option you would be using in Finland. That is something you would be using, for instance, in Portugal, Cyprus, Germany.
Mhm.
I have actually cases where my client has not been eligible to obtain a startup permit in Finland, but was actually entitled for a EU blue card in Germany. So also that happens, and now he basically resides with the Finnish EU blue card in Finland.
So I think that we've done with like a basic part, and here's some links that people can join our LinkedIn and our event calendar to subscribe to them. And I would probably ask Ilya, if you've managed to read through the questions in the chat and see what is better for the conversation. Could you ask them out loud? Okay, the sound. Ilya, switch off the sound. This is just horrible. I don't know what's going on, but I will then read the first question. If we are married to a Finnish citizen, we came based on family ties in Finland. After extended resident permit, when he had 1 + 4 years living in Finland, are we eligible to apply for Finnish citizenship afterwards, or still we gonna need to wait 8 years? So it's the question about citizenship, not
it's a citizenship, and actually this amendment of the law does not affect currently citizenship requirements in case if it's actually based on application of as a spouse of Finnish citizens. So yeah, they should be eligible to apply actually after 4 years, I believe.
Okay. Give me a second because I hope that I haven't been going through the question before, but
yes,
perfect.
Hey guys, do you hear me
You
now?
can ask.
Yes. So unfortunately, I wasn't being able to read through all the comments because we have a problem with people that couldn't join our session. So I'm fixing this problem now, so people can join our session.
Okay.
And Julia, if you can continue
Yeah,
with the
I'd like
comments,
to
that would be
continue
great.
with the comments and the questions. Tatiana asking, I have a self-employment visa. Can I apply for permanent resident permit immediately after completing my master degree in Finnish here? Or do I have to wait 4 years before applying?
So she is doing a master's degree in Finland,
Mm-hmm.
but she lives here based on self-employment or actually for entrepreneurship
Mm-hmm.
residence permit, I assume.
Yes.
Well, that's a really interesting case. I mean, presuming that she is actually able to make a master's degree in Finland in less than 4 years, which is possible, as studied before, and commendable. If it's a university degree, actually, if it's the higher degree in applied sciences or actually university degree, then actually it overrides the the first ground, which is income or the working. So yes, she would be entitled to apply actually immediately after completing the Finnish degree.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's
Also,
great.
well, I'm considering that I myself have spent like 6.5 years in university. I just would not imagine that.
But you can go after, for example, you have a bachelor degree somewhere else, and then you move to Finland and have the only master degree, which is like 2 years. You can
Oh yeah, that's true.
master
That's true.
thesis, and then it's possible.
Yeah, that's true.
Ryan asking, I'm interested in digging into the details for the 40K permanent resident path. Precisely what is included, excluded, like parental leave benefits or home care allowance or investment interest. Does data come from income register or tax return?
Tax return, basically. So there is a calculation formula in the new paragraph in that particular issue, but yes, benefits do not count. So the state benefits, the ones which are provided by the state benefits, are not. Those which are accrued, so for instance, like working pensions, they do count, but like investment income and so on, that does count, and they take that from your tax returns. They will look at your latest taxation, which is available. For instance, like now, in a couple of months, right now, we should be getting our tax returns for 2025. So from that, you will see how much of incomes you will have. And then there's actually a formula for which you can see for yourself. I will open it up and see what exactly it says. It's
Yeah, you can share your screen then.
yeah. It's oh, it's well, yeah, I will not be spending time. I don't need to dig that up later on, but yes, essentially there is you could actually check it from immediate law text because it's going to be there. I think it's
You can probably send me a screenshot or a link.
yeah.
direct-
I will have to do it later on because currently
and I will send that and we will share it in our
Yeah.
channels.
But essentially, what it means that all your income which is declared counts towards that, and then but the benefits do not. So in case you are, for instance, unemployment benefits do not count. If you are receiving like maternity leave, that is actually a bit of special case because it counts towards the residence time, but it does not count towards the income. So it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your maternity leave period counts towards the time,
Mm-hmm.
but not for the income.
But for example, if I took my maternity leave for 3 months, and I still have sufficient 40K for the year, even if we will deduct this paternity benefit.
By the way, the accrued maternity leave. So basically in Finland, as you might know, you have two kinds of benefits. The ones which are based on your accrued from the salary thingy, that's why you pay 2L or UL, depending on whether you are entrepreneur or a employee. So those which are based on your salary and which are accrued, which basically you are paying yourself to yourself, those do count, but those which are paid by state do not count.
Okay, I see. If you retired to Finland and have never worked here and never will, how does that impact the work requirement?
Yes, there is actually there is this provision stating that there's the working history requirement, which actually is only counted to the period before your in case you will never actually you never will be working here either, then obviously what counts is your income based on your pensions from outside of Finland, because if you have never worked in Finland, you will not have any pension to which you would be allowed in Finland based on your work here. You would only be, in case you're a citizen or have a permanent residence, you would be entitled to so-called kansaneläke, the citizen pension, which is rather small, but still. But in case you are receiving more than 40K a year of pensions from outside of Finland, then yes, you are qualified.
Mm-hmm. But there is also a way to go through citizenship route, not the permanent resident permit. For citizenship, as I understand, for the old people, if they're not able to pass the UKI test, they can prove that they've been trying, listen in courses and so on, and receive this approval.
That's a huge topic on which I would like to touch. It's the sheer fear people seem to have against studying Finnish or Swedish. Yes, theoretically it is possible to avoid learning Finnish and Swedish, but those cases are far and few between, and that was also the situation before all these amendments. I mean, especially for citizenship, the language requirement is nothing new. In case you are willing to stay in Finland, like let's say semi-permanently or permanently, yes, you should be learning the lingo. And the only exceptions are granted to people over 65 years. Before, there was actually not such qualification, so it was assessed on case by case, in case you were like really old or something. But practice was actually pretty close to 65. I would actually say it was a bit like harsher even then, or then on a medical condition. But then that actually you need to prove that you are retarded essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That you actually are prevented from learning a language. So otherwise, the requirement levels of language which are currently required are not horribly difficult. The kids learn those within half a year. The adults, let's say, if paying attention, should be easily learning those in 2 years. So by the time your general residence limits are reached, in normal case, you should actually be equipped with language skills actually above the requirements. The problem, of course, is especially like in Helsinki region, where there's a lot of immigrants who actually only socialize among themselves. And a bit of problem also with Finns, because whenever Finns hear you speaking Finnish with an accent, they switch to English like right away.
Mm-hmm.
That you actually never hear enough of Finnish and or Swedish in order to learn that. But that is manageable just by stating to your colleagues that fuck off, I'm speaking Finnish to you right now and you will answer me in Finnish and stuff like that. But the language requirements are not particularly harsh.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, of course, with Finnish is that we are a small country in a small language zone, so people tend to, let's say, to dismiss Finnish language as something exotic, which they should not be learning. I mean, the requirements for language in Germany and France are exactly more or less the same or even harder, but no one seems to be offended by the requirement to learn German or French or Spanish for that matter, or Italian. So
Mhm.
That is not something what you should be planning. Just learn the language. It's by far the easiest solution.
Mhm. And let's go back to the questions as we have like 10 minutes probably. Does a spouse need to change their resident permit when their partner obtains permanent residence?
For the spouses, I mean, if for instance, like the main partner, you would say, if you are speaking about the earner, actually gets the residence or applies for permanent residence after 4 years and obtains it, then unless the spouse have the 40 kilo income, unfortunately, she will have still to wait for the 6 years and so on. So actually, there is an exception. Well, the exception goes the other way around. So if you are as a family member who have been living here on a family member permit, and for one reason or the other, your spouse, who was the livelihood earner or whatever, who was the main, would say, protagonist in your family, is for some reason not entitled to apply for permanent residence, but you are, then you are entitled to get that permanent residence despite your spouse not being able to. But it does not work like the other way around. So in case your spouse, who is the earner and so on, actually is entitled to obtain it, you will need to seek whether to see whether you personally you qualify. So it does not go like as entire family at the time. And once again, the family members in Finland are only considered to be the immediate family, the nucleus family. So it's your spouse and the underage kids. That's it. No one else is family in Finland.
Beatrice asking, we already answered this question, but let's say it again. How does it work for graduates from Finnish universities with 15 ESTS of Finnish studies who have not yet secured a job here? Can we still apply?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as it's a Finnish degree, I mean, that you have obtained the higher degree in or the university degree in Finland, then yes, you can apply.
Is it necessary to have a valid permit for all the time until the decision on the permanent is made, considering the situation when the valid permit ends and there is still no decision on the permanent? Another question, yeah.
That is a really commonly occurring thing, as you might have noted, for instance, like in case that happens even when you actually apply for prolongation of your pre-existing, but not applying for permanent. The key question here is to apply in time. Just apply before it ends. Actually, obviously, it's good to apply, let's say, well in advance, but other than that, it does not have to be in force when actually you receive it. What needs to be in force is the grounds for which your original residence permit was granted. So in case you were an employee, then you should be still employed. In case you were an entrepreneur, you should still be an entrepreneur. In case you're a family member, you should still be a family member, and so on.
Another question here, is it possible to work while the previous permit has ended?
If you have applied for a prolongation, yes. Basically, you are entitled to stay in the country as long as there is this difference of concepts. The right of legal residence and the valid residence permit. So basically, what happens then when you have applied in due time for a new permit and then it's not ready by the time your old one expires, you are entitled to remain in Finland until a resolution is made regarding your new application, and all your rights which were in force at the application basically remains in force until the new resolution is made.
Okay, Nancy is asking, I'm not really into this question, but I will ask, probably you will understand better. Those of us with remigration permits were descendants of verified
the descendants, yeah.
Descendants have no income requirements to obtain our permits. Will we be required to meet the 40,000 threshold also?
Yes, if you are not intending to work in Finland, and no, if you are actually repatriating on the basis of excellent language, and if you are showing your integration, because there's like we assumingly will have a number of pensioners coming from the United States, for instance. They have funny times in there, so many people will be coming here in order to spend perhaps the pension time here. Also, I wonder why. I mean, when the Finns actually do exactly the same in Portugal or Spain. So, yeah, those who are coming here not to work, those will need.
Mm-hmm. For the yeah, can I continue?
We decided to fix the situation in this way that we have created a Q&A, well, basically a form where we collect all the questions from participants that couldn't join this session.
Okay.
And yeah, we have a plenty of questions coming on right now. So will we be able to take these questions at some point or not?
Kirill, do you have additional half an hour right now to stay here for a longer time to have a chance to answer some of them?
Yes, of course. I have approximately 25 minutes only. I have next meeting coming at 1:30. But yes, I will be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you so much. So Ilya, probably you can go with those questions there.
Yeah. So after you or now?
Let's go one by one. So we will be, split questions who will be answered. So you can start with your question right now.
Okay, yeah. So we have a following question. How are the 3 months of receiving benefits calculated? In calendar days or in the days for which the benefit was paid? So 7 days per week or 5. Does it matter who pays the benefit, Kela or an unemployment fund in this case?
That actually we have already touched upon that already. What counts is the total time. So it's but as I stated earlier, the trick here is that it's not as much of benefits. It's actually, it also implies that if you are unemployed for that time. So for instance, if you are I could imagine this leading to a serious problems with Migri in, let's say, in assessing each case by case. In, for instance, situation where you actually have been on a so-called forced vacation. So basically, when your company is running low on funds, and then you need to send off your personnel off to be not paid, but your employment still remains in force theoretically. So, or not theoretically, but it does remain in force. So your labor contract is in force, but you are not getting the salary. What would count in that situation is the actual days you are receiving the benefits for. So essentially, it's when you apply for a certain period. So, for instance, you say that's okay. I am without work, without salary as of, for instance, 1st of January and until for instance 1st of March. And in period, then you would have then you would have 2 months counting into that, and Kela would be paying for you your salary. And Kela would obviously, I mean, they are, I believe, paying for each working day, but still that would be, I believe, my case is that would be 2 months. But for instance, if you are actually without salary for 4 months while your employment still remains in force, then actually, for instance, if you take the unemployment benefits once also for 2 months, and then are 2 months without any income, unless you're a specialist, that should only count as 2 months, because specialists actually need to receive the higher salary and so on. So in case that is exceeded by 3 months, then it will be an issue actually for the existence of the actual the residence permit they have. But for instance, if you are then if you are taking unemployment benefits for the entire 4 months that you are unemployed, then it would be 4 months. So then the condition will be breached. But again, if your employment is actually terminated, and then you are without due salary for I don't know, for instance, even if you take benefits even for 1 week, but you are actually unemployed for 3 months, then it will be counted as 3 months, even if you find a new job. So it's not only it's a bit vague in that, and especially like the coalition's proposal for the law, which is number 62 of 2025, is not really shedding much light on that, how exactly that should be implemented. But I should state that it's actually, in case your employment is enforced, then it's actually it's only actually the actual time you are taking the unemployment benefits, which is, I mean, the time when you are stating you are not receiving salary to Kela. But if you don't have a valid employment contract in force, then it's actually the entire period when you are not employed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A question from, thank you, Kirill. I'm just jumping from question to question to be, to cover as much as possible. I have a question from entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Can I apply for a permanent resident permit in October 2026 if I earned a total salary of 40,000 between September 25 and September 26, even the tax assessment is issued only in March 27?
No, it's the law is quite clear on this. They take the latest tax returns. So basically, if your latest taxation shows 40 kilo plus, then you can apply. If it's less, then well, why should you? But as stated before, I mean, that's since they will probably be checking that criteria both on the moment of your application and on the moment of granting you the permit, which might be like up to a year in between or even more perhaps. So you should be, like, let's say, mentally prepared to having at least 2 consecutive years with income of 40K or more.
Mm-hmm.
Taxation years, because that is based on they check basically 2 documents: your tax returns, the tax certificate on your income statement in taxable or declared incomes, and then the tulo register, which but as stated before, it does not have to be exactly salary. It can be any income which is declared and taxed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ilya. Your mic is off, Ilya.
Yes. Basically, they check the tax decision for the previous year, and they will be checking your income registry when you will be receiving, or so when they're reviewing your application.
Actually, the income registry, in case we are speaking about the 40K criteria, the income register is something they check just routinely. They check, like, let's say they check 2-3 sources like always. One is income register, one is actually your residence history. They check your border crossings. They just basically look how much time you have spent in Finland, and then they might actually be checking your tax history. But in this particular case, it's I mean, it's explicitly written in the law that they will be always using the freshest available tax information, the tax returns. And since that happens once a year, since the tax period for natural persons is the calendar year, and since the freshest tax decision is usually available like in April, that's what they will be using.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ilya, your turn.
Yeah, sure. So we received many questions from students regarding application for the permanent residence and so on. So I can start with this question. If I'm a student at the University of Applied Sciences and my planned graduation date is December 2026, and my residence permit is valid until 31st of July, do I need to apply for a new permit immediately after graduation based on new ground, or do I have the time until July to decide which residence permit to apply? And then basically the another question was regarding whether the visa B, so when you're a student in Finland and you have a visa B, counted somehow towards this period or not? Like of let's say when applying for residence permit,
When applying for degree,
permanent residence.
But based on degree, then that degree itself is actually the, let's say, that's the issue. I mean, the residence time is much less relevant in there than otherwise. But in general, I mean, the time is calculated when you begin a residence in Finland based on the. There is an explicit provision on that in law. I mean, where from the residence is considered to start. I am. Just a second. Just let me quickly check because I had some notes on that, but it just slipped my active working memory, so to say, how exactly it went in there.
It would be also good to understand how, in general, time calculation works for, let's say, different type of visas. For example, if there are some changes regarding that, or on gaps. Yeah.
The general rule is that residence time begins at latter of you actually entering and beginning residing in Finland on a permanent basis, which usually then means registration in the municipality and so on, or the date of granting of the continuous residence permit, which means a permit then.
Mm-hmm. I have a simple question. If a person is eligible for permanent resident, can his wife and child apply for that as well together?
Those are independent. I stated that is actually the biggest, let's say, biggest and most drastic change. Perhaps it works the other way around. So in case, for instance, like the main character is not all of a sudden eligible for a permanent residence, but his family members would be, then they may apply even despite the first person not being able to apply quite yet, for instance, due to it could be discontinuation in the working relations, or it would be like, the discontinuation in income requirements and so on. But it does not work the other way around. So basically, in case you are entitled to apply on basis of your employment, then you cannot expedite at the same time your family members.
And regarding the child, I would add that you can apply together with the child, and child will be granted the permanent resident permit together with you, even if he or she been spending less time in Finland than needed. Because before, for example, I with my daughter, when we've been applying, she'd been need to wait her 4 years here. But for now, you can apply together.
Yes.
As I'm right.
Yeah.
If she's underage, basically, but but the law becomes quite more harsh once she turns 18.
All right. So, I probably would burst a bubble in here. I have a kind of interesting question. Would it make sense to apply to the residence permit, permanent residence permit, and the blue card extension at the same time, in case that the permanent is denied for some reason? And then just the question, another kind of follow-up, that if you're a blue card holder, then was it also changed the way how you receive a PEU card, which is a permanent, the blue card holders?
Now you slightly blew my mind. You combined so many aspects in there. So basically, are you asking whether in case your EU blue card is more or less due to expire, but you are entitled to apply for permanent residence, for instance, evidently based on a specialist salary, as in this case, because normally that would typically be the case.
Yeah.
Well, that is an excellent question. I have actually one case where an entrepreneur, specialist, applied for a permanent residence like approximately a year ago, even more, and that is still not resolved. And obviously, since entrepreneurs, especially like on in senior positions, needs to be able to travel around and so on. So he had no other option but to actually apply in parallel for a continuation on his specialist visa. And I mean what that directly compares to that. I mean, you are not forced to apply for permanent residence. So in essence, you can apply also for just simple continuation of your normal EU blue card, and I guess that continuation will be then for 4 years. But whether you should be actually applying for parallel on both of those, it depends. I mean, I would say that pragmatic answer is it depends completely on the processing times, because in permanent residences the processing times are usually substantially higher. So if you actually need to, like, if you know that your card will expire in the moment that you need to be traveling around, then it might be worth a while to apply for that, and then in parallel to apply for permanent residence, and then just wait out until it. I mean, one does not preclude another.
Mm-hmm.
But normally, let's say in an ideal world, with the problem currently is that, especially with the post factum monitoring of the criteria for the permanent residences, the amount of work Migri is forced currently to do has been manifolded. And since the budget for most of the state authorities have been cut, so essentially they have, they don't have less specialists, but they have, like, let's say, less paid and less motivated specialists to work on bigger amounts of cases. So that has led to processing times actually growing exponentially. So in case if you are only able to apply for something in the simplest possible matter, that every criteria, every single criteria which is written out in law is definitely okay, then it will be processed automatically, and then the resolution will be really fast. But if there is anything in your conditions which, let's say, requires human attention, then unfortunately the processing times will be, let's say, unpredictable. Therefore, it actually all depends on that. But there is nothing which would prevent you for applying simultaneously at both continuation and for permanent residence.
I do have one good question from Sahar. How do they calculate 2 years of work experience? Does it accept the part-time work experience or not?
It's all the work which actually qualifies for the type of residence permit you have qualifies. So if it's part-time, then obviously it should be fulfilling, your income criteria. Actually, I had an excellent case when I have one client who actually.
I'm sorry, Kirill. I believe that this question is about permanent resident permit on 6 years period. Still required 2 years of work experience.
Yes.
So, but doesn't require any specific.
Okay. It's yeah. So it's a general requirement. Yeah. Then all the time when you are actually formally employed should be counting. There is no, in that sense, there is no income requirement for that.
Okay. Thank you for the answer.
Although, actually, I have to be frank, there is a risk that if your actual income in that period falls below the minimal theoretical salary, which is like approximately 1,600 currently, I think, then Kela might raise a question, but otherwise, I mean, part-time job is I'm a part-time job as long as for instance, like the income criteria is fulfilled, is still a job.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and yeah, your turn.
Yeah. So I have this question from Darima. Please clarify what the condition of not being registered with the employment service means. Does this requirement apply to those who have found a job and have been working for a year, a requirement to work for at least 2 years, or do you simply need to deregister from the employment service?
If I understood this question correctly, it means whether you are receiving unemployment benefits or not.
Yeah.
But then again, there comes the income criteria, there comes the working history period, and so on. If you're speaking about 6 years, then I mean, then it's I believe the latest. No, that's actually on basis of employment. I mean, if you are here basically. So that would typically apply then only in case of, well, essentially family members, because I don't see how actually that would be an issue with any other. Because I mean, if you are here based on employment, then your employment should be in force. I mean, you are not entitled to receive unemployment benefit for longer than 3 months, and then you should not actually be without job for longer than 3 months in case your employment relation is actually ended. So basically, I said there is a difference between if you are terminated from employment completely, or then if you are left without salary because of the, for instance, cash prices in your employee. But other than that, I mean, that is. I believe I have addressed actually that before. I don't.
Yeah. So that actually that is regarding family members and the unemployment services. Yes. Okay, Julia, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Ryan have a very good question. Does the road need to be declared in the application itself? Or, for example, if you are fit for several criteria like education plus income, who will be choosing those roads for you when you apply for permanent resident permit?
That's actually an excellent question, because that was also the issue before, because you might have, for instance, like you might have had reasons for residence permits on basis on family ties. If you were, for instance, like already married to a Finnish citizen and then studies and or work. But essentially, you should choose the application which is the easiest for you, and then in that application, which has the same, let's say, the fastest and the most lenient criteria, and which is easiest to show. And within that application, you could also, like, for instance, say, oh, by the way, beside this one, I have also grounds for this and this. That's the easiest. I mean, you cannot have several parallel actually applications, but you could stay that within say. You can have parallel applications, for instance, for permanence and continuation of temporarily restricted one. But yeah, but you should apply. Let's say you should apply on your strongest criteria, and then within that application, I also add like as additional info that, by the way, I have also several other grounds for that, or several grounds for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least how it has been resolved in practice so far.
Okay, Ilya, your turn.
Yeah, so basically the questions that been asked us through the form are ended. So yes, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to go with the questions of people who raise their hands, or
I think
we proceed with the chat?
I think it will be nice to give a chance to Mitra ask her question.
Yes.
You've been here with us with the raised hands almost all
Yes.
event. Please ask your question, and probably that will be the
Yes.
final one.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed for letting me to ask my question. You know, I've been here for about 8 years, and I have been sending many job applications. From my field of study, I have a PhD in education and I'm a professional English language, up to cleaning jobs, but all were rejected. For me at present, the most important thing is to find a job. All these rules you said I knew. I can read in Migri's newsletter, but job, the main thing is finding a job. How you can help me to find one with all my qualifications? My English is like a native speaker. I am a professional English teacher. I can work in various fields. So
You have described probably the most pressing problem which has been around for decades, and everybody is aware of that. You are, let's say, overqualified for simple jobs and then not thin enough for qualified jobs. That is something we encounter like every now and then, especially with people with degrees in humanities and so on, social studies and so on. A lot of highly educated people who are, let's say, fresh from academia or then not even so fresh. It's that is a huge issue. I mean, the only means forward is actually to learn the language. Knowing Finnish on excellent level helps a lot, and even that does not guarantee anything. That is unfortunate case, and this problem is known, and it has been around for a long time. But let's say the current governmental coalition has no intentions whatsoever to do anything about that, because basically they presume that such cases should simply not exist. But yes, that is something like, for instance, like my mother. She has a PhD in engineering, and in her, let's say, she had approximately 20 years remaining of her career at moving from Soviet Union to Finland. And in that period, out of 20 years, she was employed perhaps for 6 years, and mostly in job. Well, actually, I hear a small addition. We came here in the times of huge recession of the early 90s. I mean, now we do have recession, but it's nothing compared to, let's say, to 90 to 98 approximately. And out of that time, she was employed as a seamstress, as a school assistant, and a couple of jobs which definitely do not require a degree in engineering. But yes, that is unfortunately a very typical situation. Well, not exactly very typical situation, but not unheard of situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Kirill, for your
so
perspective.
I have no chance to find a job because of overqualifications, blah blah blah.
Mitra, may I add a little bit for this question? We at Nerds Bay helping people to find a job remotely, which making your job search market way bigger than it exists in Finland. So what I recommend you is to make a call with me. You can order it from our website, and we can go through your roads and try to find out the solution, what might be for you here in Finland, or for remote communities of abroad. Yes, that's also might be in your case. So guys, I probably will share again our slides, this one. So if you wish to participate webinars like that for the nearest future, we will have this employment of record webinar when we will explain how our services work and how to find a remote job in general. So you can subscribe to our event calendar here. So let's check it out, how we can, try to help you at least. We have plenty of professionals helping us, like recruiters who help to settle your LinkedIn proficiency. recruiter who help you to understand what roles might be set and so on. So there is, nowadays the market situation is that there is so many helping professionals nowadays. There is recruiters who help you with traction. So they, support you, not recruiters, I'm calling them recruiters, but this is like people who help you with the job search. They helping you as a support, as a mental support, because there is so many rejections that you faced every time, and of course you need to stand with that. Then there is a people who help you to understand what options exist more, because of course we all live in our bubbles, and the more people we connect, the more information we can receive.
If I may add, the best option is just to simply check with the site of Migri, because they do have their internal regulations, or not internal regulation, they have a load of information in there. So let's say consider it better, for instance, option than seeking just Googling or using AE to make digests from what you see, is just look what Migri says on their site. I mean, they not always have them up to date, but they do the best actually. So despite being considerably, let's say, understaffed at the moment, they actually do their best to publish everything and to make it all as clear as possible. So from there, and once you begin the application process, I mean, as said, in Finland, everybody should be eligible to make the application themselves without actually needing much of professional help. It's usually quite easy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Ilya.
I can add as well that this process is really hard at the moment. I mean, process of finding a job, and the way how typically how I see it from the perspective of our community and how people are looking for jobs. Then basically the first step is change. So basically you're changing yourself as a better candidate. So you establish yourself as a better candidate. You update your LinkedIn, you update your CV, you update your profile. Then you go and apply. And then after you get some feedback from your applications that you submitted, you analyze what have you done wrong, whether it's the right track or not. And then you iterate. Then you basically change it to a way where it tracks better. And then you reapply, and then you analyze again. So this is the way how it works. And the way how we are actually helping for people in your situation and for people with jobs is that we are a community, we are a talent community, various specialists with various problems, like when it comes to the job search. And we organize different lectures, we organize webinars, trainings, etc., which we do with Luma. So we'll be happy to tell more, and we'll be happy to see you on our next sessions. This is what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Ilya, and I would like thanks again, Kirill. The topic is super hot, and I do understand people who join the session because it's very, important to understand how processes will look like in a current situation. And I would also add that of course there is a law which we all try to read and to understand, but it's also will be how Migri will apply this law. For example, Kirill, you told that 3-6 rule, it's been existed. The Migri, they can request your income and situation like more even before this rule, but
39, but it was about actually income and basically the principles of calculation of income. There has been attempts actually to revise those, but that is I think it's the new rule of calculation of the income is more or less the same as has been used in chapter 39 of the law. But basically what you should do in case you actually want to dig deeper into this, then you take the government's proposal or 62/2025, you translate it with DeepL. It's approximately 170 pages. But basically there is a point-by-point clarification on what the government was thinking about when considering these amendments. There actually is a chance that since I did not prepare for this for horribly long, there might be actually some information which I did not quite understand on basis of what I read, but this is my best understanding of the current situation. What's the best, absolutely best in Finland is that you need to remember that Migri is actually it's a state agency, and they have an obligation to actually, to as far as resources allow, to tell, let's say, to tell the clients which you are what is expected from you. So they do have the regulations. You can always call them, although the phone lines are usually quite busy and so on. So if you have any questions, regarding your particular case, absolutely best source is Migri itself.
That's absolutely true. Thank you for this valuable addition.
Yeah, you should never be afraid of actually contacting Migri with. I know that in some other jurisdictions, let's say contacting the state authorities might be, let's say, a challenge or something to be afraid of. But in case of Migri, even though they are severely, let's say, undermanned and overpowered right now, it's they do reply usually in quite friendly way and quite fast.
Okay, so thank you very much. It's already time, and I wish you all a good weekend. Yeah, we're already done with
I will be leaving for next meeting, but it was a pleasure meeting you all. So
thank you very much.
And just to close this session, sorry for the technical issues that we had today, and we will get back to those who couldn't join our session, and we will provide you with a follow-up and some more information and the way how you can ask your questions and express yourself if you don't know where to find answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys. See you in
Thank you.
next sessions. Bye.
Goodbye.